'Cause it's Taco Tuesday.
What's today?
It's Thursday.
Really? Feels like Tuesday.
Tuesday has no feel. Monday has a feel. Friday has a feel. Sunday has a feel.
I feel Tuesday and Wednesday.
All right, shut up, the both of you.
Tuesday, Newsday.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday Newsday number 17, where our learning goal is to determine two or more central ideas of a text and analyze that development over the course of that text, including how those central ideas interact and build on one another. At the end of the video, you'll be asked to rate yourself on a scale of 1 through 4. If you're at a 4, that means that you can identify the central ideas by using evidence that the author uses to prove his or her point, and you're able to identify how those ideas build on one another. A 3 means that you can identify the central ideas, and you're showing the evidence that the author uses to prove his or her point, but you're not really talking to me about how those ideas build on one another. And a 2 means that you're able to point out the central idea, but you can't really point to either the quotes or the connections that the author makes as to why that central idea is what it is. And a 1 means that you were unsure of how to find the central idea of the text. To receive 1.5 units for today's class, you must highlight or underline the main idea, circle the evidence that the author uses to prove his or her point, and put a box around any other central ideas in the text. Of course, we are going to work with 4 skills today. The first is to identify the topic. That usually shows up in the title of the article. In the end, you'll have to summarize the story in 10 to 12 words. If you can summarize the story in 10 to 12 words, that usually means that you are able to block out all of the other stuff that isn't right to the point of that main idea. And you're really honing in on what that main idea is. The first and last sentence are important because the first serves to introduce the main idea, and the last typically recaps those main points in one way or another. And then obviously repeated ideas, things that happen a lot in the article, things that are repeated a lot in the article, quotes, ideas, things like that would lead us to that main idea. We will see that in our article today. An article titled, "Lawmaker Shuts Down Heckler During Speech with Okay Boomer," written for the Washington Post on November 20th of 19. And the article begins this way. The 25-year-old lawmaker was just 40 seconds into her speech about the dire importance of stricter climate change policy when a heckle rang through the mostly empty hearing room. "In the year 2050, I will be 56 years old, yet right now the average age of this 52nd parliament is 49 years old," said Chloe Swarbrick, a member of the New Zealand Parliament, emphasizing that the burden of dealing with the climate change crisis will fall on her generation and those who come after. As she spoke, one of her colleagues jeered at her age, shouting something indiscernible from his seat. With devastating concision, like legions of teens on TikTok before her, Swarbrick replied, without missing a beat, "Okay, boomer," she said, then continued her remarks. The glib retort, often employed by millennials and Generation Z, has become global shorthand, a withering reply to condescension from other generations, notably baby boomers. The viral phrase has also been labeled the shortest shot fired in an escalating generation war, where the front lines are social media comment sections and relations have frayed over issues like student loan debt and climate change. The reaction inside the New Zealand Parliament building was muted, perhaps because the room was nearly empty, or perhaps because Swarbrick's casual use of internet argot didn't resonate with those in attendance who, if they were like the average lawmaker, were twice her age. Later, Swarbrick said some were upset with the interjection during the Tuesday speech, but she said she was simply responding to the heckling lawmaker in kind and meant no malice. "Today I have learned that responding succinctly and in perfect jest to somebody heckling you about your age as you speak about the impact of global climate change on your generation, with the literal title of their generation making some people very mad," she wrote on Facebook. So I guess millennials ruined humor. That, or we just need to pull ourselves up by our bootstraps and abstain from avocados. That's the joke. Swarbrick, a member of the Green Party who assumed office in 2017, was speaking in support of landmark legislation that would set a countrywide target of zero carbon emissions by 2050. She called it the starting line for systemic change on the issue. How many world leaders for how many decades have seen and known what is coming, but have decided that it is more politically expedient to keep it behind closed doors, Swarbrick said. My generation and the generations after me do not have that luxury. The plan, endorsed by New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern, has faced opposition from farmers and some in the opposition National Party who say that the benchmarks for methane reduction would be overly burdensome on the country's large and influential agricultural industry. Agriculture is incredibly important to New Zealand, but it also needs to be part of the solution, said Climate Change Minister James Shaw when the legislation was introduced in May. Shaw, with Swarbrick, is one of the 8 Green Party members in Parliament. Swarbrick said her party is interested in more drastic policy, but that this bill represents the greatest consensus that we have managed to reach this Parliament and across the government as a blueprint for climate action. As she spoke, Parliament TV's closed captioning whirred as usual, transcribing the lawmaker's speech. But the captions couldn't keep up with her quip, quoting her as saying, "Okay, Burma." The captions on Parliament TV clearly have not got the memo on millennial slang, tweeted New England Herald reporter Jason Walls. The country's official Parliament Twitter account replied with a mea culpa and a pledge. We apologize for the error and have updated the captions accordingly. We need to start doing all-office meme briefings. So I will let you work on identifying the topic, summarizing the story, identifying the first and last sentence, and the main idea. But I am going to talk to you about repeated ideas. I think it's pretty obvious in the article that we are talking about social media and generational slang. So I'll put millennial / Gen Z slang that was not understood by members of the meeting. By members of the meeting. The other thing that you should be talking about is the climate crisis conversation presented in the article. And finally, you should probably be talking about the age difference between Chloe Swarbrick and her fellow, in this case, because it's New Zealand, Parliament members. We would call it probably Congress. But for them it's Parliament. Note, and I will make this as clear as I possibly can, these are not / cannot be your answers. You must find a quote that represents the ideas listed above. When you do that, you'll earn your unit. So that's what I expect for repeated ideas, and then eventually, you'll be able to answer the main idea of the article. And so with that, and I hope this little bit of help clarified some stuff for you, made some things clear. I don't have much more to add, and so ciao for now.